Garrett Donovan was 29 years old and had been married to his wife Natalie for 3 years when he first heard the sounds coming from their basement at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in late October. The noise wasn't loud, just a faint scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged across concrete. Then silence. Then the scraping again. Garrett lay in bed, his heart pounding against his ribs, listening. Beside him, Natalie slept peacefully, her breathing slow and steady. The scraping stopped. Garrett convinced himself it was nothing. Old houses made noises. They'd bought this 1940s colonial in suburban Cleveland for $287,000 18 months ago. The inspector had warned them about settling foundations and aging pipes. This was probably just that. But when he heard it again the next night at the same time, 2:47 a.m. exactly, Garrett knew it wasn't the house settling. 3 nights, 4 nights, 5 nights, always at 2:47 a.m., always the same scraping sound, followed by what might have been footsteps, then silence. By the 6th night, Garrett was barely sleeping. Dark circles formed under his eyes. His performance at his job as an electrical engineer at Brennan Systems started to slip. His boss, Mitchell Crawford, had pulled him aside after a meeting. "Garrett, you with us? You look like hell." "Just not sleeping well," Garrett had muttered. The strangest part wasn't the noises. It was Natalie. She never woke up, never heard anything. And when Garrett mentioned it casually over breakfast, "Did you hear anything weird last night?" She'd looked at him with those bright green eyes and smiled. "Like what?" "I don't know. Sounds. From the basement, maybe." "Basement? Honey, you're working too hard. Maybe you should see a doctor about your insomnia." That conversation had been this morning. Tonight was night 7, and Garrett had made a decision. He was going down to that basement at 2:47 a.m., and he was going to find out what was making those sounds. Before we continue with what Garrett discovers, I need to be honest with you. Creating these stories takes real work, real research, real dedication to bringing you the most gripping content every single day. If you're enjoying this story, if you value the time and effort that goes into crafting these narratives, then the least you can do is hit that subscribe button for Story Mode Folktales. It takes you 2 seconds. Just 2 seconds to support this channel, and while you're at it, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Are you in Texas? New York? Maybe watching from across the world in London or Sydney? I want to know. Your engagement keeps these stories coming. Don't be a ghost viewer. Show some love. Now let's see what's waiting for Garrett in that basement. Garrett and Natalie had met at a friend's wedding in Columbus 5 years ago. She'd been working as a pharmaceutical sales rep for Medix Corporation, pulling in around $63,000 a year with bonuses. He'd been drawn to her confidence, her easy laugh, the way she could talk to anyone about anything. They'd married after dating for 2 years, and for the most part, it had been good. But there were things about Natalie that had always puzzled him. She was intensely private about certain things. Her phone was always password protected. She had a locked filing cabinet in the home office that she said contained boring tax documents from her previous jobs. She'd get strange calls sometimes and step outside to take them, coming back with that same bright smile. "Just work stuff," she'd say. Garrett had never been the suspicious type. He trusted his wife. But these noises, and her complete inability to hear them, that was different. The basement of their colonial was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed beams, an ancient furnace that rumbled to life every few hours, and boxes. Lots of boxes. Most were theirs, stuff they hadn't unpacked yet. But some had been there when they bought the house. The previous owners, an elderly couple named the Hoffmans, had died within months of each other. Their children had sold the house quickly, leaving behind some items they didn't want. Garrett had been down there maybe 10 times since they'd moved in. It was cold, damp, and smelled like mold and old concrete. Not a place you wanted to spend time. Now, sitting in bed at 2:43 a.m., Garrett was wide awake. He'd positioned his phone on the nightstand, recording app ready. He wore sweatpants and a t-shirt. In his hand, he gripped a flashlight. His baseball bat from college leaned against the bed. 2:45 a.m. Natalie stirred beside him, mumbling something in her sleep. 2:46 a.m. Garrett's palms were sweating. 2:47 a.m. The scraping started. Garrett moved quickly but quietly. He grabbed the bat, the flashlight, and his phone. He crept out of the bedroom, down the hallway, past the guest room and bathroom, to the door that led to the basement stairs. The scraping was louder here, definitely coming from below. His hand shook as he turned the doorknob. The door creaked open. The basement stairs descended into darkness. Garrett flicked on the flashlight and started down. Each step groaned under his weight. The scraping stopped. "Hello?" Garrett called out, his voice cracking. "Is someone down here?" Silence. He reached the bottom of the stairs and swept the flashlight across the basement. Boxes, furnace, old paint cans. Nothing unusual, nothing moving. Then he heard it. Breathing. Not his own. Someone else's. Coming from behind the furnace. "I know you're there," Garrett said, raising the bat. "I'm calling the police." A figure stepped out from behind the furnace. Garrett's scream caught in his throat. It was Natalie. But it couldn't be Natalie. Natalie was upstairs in bed. He'd just left her there. "Garrett," the woman said in Natalie's voice. She looked exactly like his wife. Same green eyes, same dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, same small scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood accident. "You weren't supposed to come down here." "Who are you?" Garrett stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a box. "I'm your wife." No, my wife is upstairs." The woman, this Natalie who wasn't Natalie, smiled sadly. "Garrett, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound insane, but I need you to stay calm." "Stay calm? There are two of you." "Not exactly." She moved closer. Garrett raised the bat higher. She stopped. "There's only one of me, Garrett. The woman upstairs. The woman you've been living with for the past 18 months. That's not me." Garrett's mind was racing. This was impossible. This was a nightmare. He was still in bed, dreaming, having some kind of stress-induced hallucination. "You're crazy," he managed. "I'm calling the cops. If you do that, she'll know I told you, and she'll kill me. She'll kill both of us." "Who will?" "The woman upstairs. The woman pretending to be me." Garrett's hand holding the phone was shaking so badly he could barely keep his grip. "This is insane. This is completely insane." "I know, but it's true. Garrett, 18 months ago, did Natalie go on a business trip? 3 days to a pharmaceutical conference in Denver?" He remembered. She had. July of last year. He'd stayed home because of a big project at work. When she came back, did she seem different, even a little? Garrett thought back. She had seemed different. She'd cut her hair shorter, said she'd done it impulsively at the hotel salon. She'd been more affectionate when she returned. Started cooking his favorite meals without him asking. He'd thought she'd just missed him. "Who are you?" he whispered. "I'm Natalie. The real Natalie. Your wife. And I've been trapped in this basement for 18 months while someone else lives my life." Garrett didn't believe her. How could he? People didn't just get replaced by identical strangers. That was the plot of bad science fiction movies, not real life in suburban Cleveland. But the woman in front of him knew things. She knew that he had a birthmark shaped like Florida on his left shoulder blade. She knew that his mother's name was Dorothy, and she lived in a nursing home in Akron. She knew that they'd had sex the morning before he left for work, on the day she supposedly disappeared, and that afterward he'd burned toast so badly the smoke alarm went off. Anyone could know those things, Garrett said, but his voice lacked conviction. You could have researched me online. Your middle name is Eugene, after your grandfather who died in Vietnam. You hate it so much you don't tell anyone. It's not on any social media, not on any public records except your birth certificate. The only person who knows is me, because you told me on our second date when you were drunk on margaritas at that Mexican restaurant in Short North. Garrett's flashlight beam wavered. That was true. All of it. How is this possible? His voice came out as barely a whisper. Sit down, she said, gesturing to an old chair near the furnace. This is going to take a while. Garrett sat, though he kept the bat across his lap. The woman who claimed to be his real wife remained standing, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. 18 months ago, I went to Denver for that conference, she began. On the second night, I went to the hotel bar. I met a woman there. She was alone, drinking wine, looked exactly like me. I mean exactly. I thought I was looking in a mirror. She introduced herself as Vanessa Kepler. Garrett listened, his mind struggling to process this. We talked. I was freaked out, obviously. How often do you meet your exact double? She explained that we were identical twins, that we'd been separated at birth. Our biological mother had kept her, given me up for adoption. She had documentation, photos, everything. She wanted to get to know me. We agreed to meet for breakfast the next morning. And? Garrett prompted when she paused. I never made it to breakfast. When I woke up, I was here, in this basement, chained to that pole. She pointed to a support beam near the far wall. Garrett saw the chain, heavy and industrial, with a padlock hanging from it. She kept you chained here for 18 months? Not the whole time. At first, yes. She'd come down every few days. Bring food, water, let me use a bucket for a bathroom. She'd tell me about her day. My day, I guess. She'd tell me about work, about you, about my friends, my family. She studied me, learned how to be me perfectly. Garrett's stomach turned. Why didn't you scream? Why didn't I hear you? The basement is soundproofed. Look. She pointed to the ceiling. Garrett shined his flashlight up and saw thick foam panels covering the exposed floor joists above. She installed those in the first week. You probably thought she was just organizing down here. He had thought that. Natalie, the upstairs Natalie, had spent a weekend doing improvements to the basement. He'd stayed upstairs watching football, grateful he didn't have to help. After about 6 months, she stopped chaining me. I'd proven I wouldn't try to escape. Where would I go? If I showed up at the police claiming to be Natalie Donovan, they'd think I was crazy. She is Natalie Donovan now. She has my life, my job, my marriage. Who would believe me? I believe you, Garrett heard himself say. And terrifyingly, he did. Something about this woman felt right in a way the upstairs Natalie hadn't felt in months. He'd thought he was just getting comfortable in marriage, that the excitement naturally faded. But maybe what had faded was the real Natalie herself. Garrett, there's something else you need to know about this channel before we continue. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Seriously, Story Mode Folktales is bringing you content that you won't find anywhere else. Stories that keep you up at night. Stories that make you question everything you think you know about the people around. You. That deserves your subscription. That deserves your like. Hit those buttons. I'll wait. Why? Garrett asked. Why would she do this? Why would anyone want to steal someone else's life? Because hers was terrible. She told me about it. Vanessa grew up in foster care after our mother died when we were 8. She was abused, neglected, shuffled between homes. When she aged out of the system at 18, she had nothing. No education, no job prospects, no family. She struggled for years, worked terrible jobs, lived in her car sometimes. Natalie, the real Natalie, sat down on the concrete floor, hugging her knees. Then one day she saw me, just randomly, walking down a street in Denver. We looked so alike that she followed me. She found out who I was, what I did, that I had a good job, a husband, a house, a normal life. Everything she'd never had. So she decided to take it. How did she know you'd be in Denver? I posted about the conference on LinkedIn. She'd been following my social media for months, learning everything about me. She booked a room at the same hotel. She planned everything. Garrett stood up, pacing now. We need to call the police, right now. This is kidnapping, identity theft, I don't even know what else. And tell them what? That my evil twin stole my life? They'll never believe it. She has all my identification. My fingerprints are her fingerprints. My DNA is her DNA. We're identical twins, Garrett. Genetically, we're the same person. Then what do we do? I don't know. For the first time, tears filled her eyes. I've been thinking about this for 18 months. Every scenario I come up with, she wins. She's living my life perfectly. No one suspects anything. She's better at being me than I ever was. That's not true. Isn't it? She's more attentive to you. I bet she cooks more, cleans more, makes more effort with your friends and family. She told me she's gotten promoted at work twice. I'd been stuck at the same level for years. Garrett couldn't deny any of that. The Natalie upstairs was perfect. Too perfect. He'd thought he was lucky. He'd thought marriage had made her better. But it wasn't marriage at all. There has to be something, he said. Some difference between you two. Something that would prove who you really are. Real Natalie shook her head. We're identical, Garrett. Same height, same weight, same facial features. She even has the same scar above her eyebrow. She told me she gave it to herself with a razor blade so we'd match perfectly. A chill ran down Garrett's spine. What about memories? Things only the real you would know? She's studied my entire life. She's read my journals, looked at my photos, talked to my family and friends, pretending to reminisce about childhood. She knows everything I know. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Garrett had a thought. The noises. Why did she let you make noises? Why risk me hearing? I don't think she did let me. I think she sleeps deeper than I used to, and I had to do something. I couldn't just stay down here forever, waiting for her to decide I wasn't useful anymore. The scraping is me moving these boxes, trying to find something, anything, that might help. Help how? I don't know. I just knew I had to do something. Garrett looked at his watch. 3:17 a.m. He'd been down here for 30 minutes. Would the other Natalie wake up? Would she notice he was gone? We need a plan, he said. A real one. Something that will work. Real Natalie looked up at him with hope in her eyes for the first time. You believe me. You actually believe me. I believe you. Even though it sounds completely insane? Especially because it sounds insane. No one would make up a story this crazy. He paused. Also, you feel different. I can't explain it, but you feel like my wife. The woman upstairs, she's always felt slightly off. I thought I was imagining it. You weren't imagining it. How has she been keeping you alive? Food? Water? She comes down every few days when you're at work. Brings supplies. Lets me shower in the utility sink over there. She's kept me healthy because she says I'm her insurance policy. If anything goes wrong with her impersonation, she needs me available to answer questions, to help her adjust. That's why you're still alive. Yes, but Garrett, I don't think she plans to keep me alive forever. I think once she's completely secure in my life, once she's sure no one will ever question her identity, she's going to kill me. The words hung in the cold basement air like a death sentence. They needed proof. That's what Garrett decided. Incontrovertible proof that the woman sleeping upstairs wasn't his wife. and that this woman in the basement was. "What about dental records?" he suggested. "Or old injuries? Something medical that would show up differently?" Real Natalie shook her head. "We're identical twins. Our dental work might be different. But Vanessa's been going to my dentist for 18 months. She could have had work done to match mine. And she's been careful never to need medical care that might reveal inconsistencies. What about behavior? Surely there are things I would notice." "Like what?" "She's had 18 months to study me. She knows my habits, my preferences, my history. She's had access to all my belongings, all my digital life. She's even practiced my handwriting. She's thought of everything, Garrett. That's what makes this so perfect for her." Garrett's mind raced. There had to be something. Some small detail that Vanessa couldn't replicate, no matter how thorough her preparation. Then he remembered something. "Your mother," he said suddenly. "What about her?" "Your mother had a saying. She used to say it when you were worried about something. You told me about it once, after you had a bad day at work. What was it?" Real Natalie's face changed. "Smooth seas never made skilled sailors." "That's right. She'd say it when you were going through tough times. She said it to you when your first serious boyfriend broke up with you, when you didn't get into your first choice college, when you were stressed about wedding planning. She did. Does Vanessa know that?" "I don't know. I never wrote it down anywhere. It wasn't something I posted about online. It was just something between me and my mom." "Your mom died 2 years ago." "Yes." "So Vanessa couldn't ask her about it. And if you never documented it anywhere, never mentioned it to me or anyone else until that one time, there's a chance Vanessa doesn't know." Real Natalie's eyes widened. "You're going to test her." "I'm going to test her. And if she doesn't know the saying, we'll know for certain she's not you." "And then what?" "Then we go to the police. We tell them everything. We make them listen." "They won't believe us." "Maybe not at first. But we'll make them investigate. We'll demand DNA comparisons. We'll push until someone takes this seriously." Real Natalie stood up, brushing dust off her clothes. She'd been wearing the same outfit for who knows how long, jeans and a sweatshirt that were now filthy and worn. "There's something else," she said. "Vanessa keeps a file. She stores it in a lockbox in the home office. She thinks I don't know about it, but I've watched her access it when she brings me down here for conversations. The code is 4729. "What's in the file?" "I think it's documentation of her plan. Photos, notes, maybe even recordings. She's meticulous about keeping records. I think she wants to remember every detail of how she pulled this off." "Why would she keep evidence?" "Because she's proud of it. This is her greatest achievement, the thing that finally gave her the life she always wanted." Garrett checked his watch again. 3:34 a.m. He needed to get back upstairs before the fake Natalie woke up. "I'm going to come back tomorrow night," he said. "Same time. I'll have a plan by then." "Garrett?" Real Natalie grabbed his arm. "Thank you. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for not thinking I'm insane." "You're my wife," he said simply. "The real one. I can feel it." He started toward the stairs, then stopped. "One more thing. If Vanessa asks tomorrow, if she somehow suspects I came down here, tell me what to say." Real Natalie thought for a moment. "Tell her you're looking for the Christmas decorations. They're in the boxes near the west wall. She'll believe that." Garrett nodded and climbed the stairs. His heart pounded with every step. At the top, he paused, listening. No sounds from upstairs. He crept back to the bedroom. Fake Natalie was still asleep, exactly as he'd left her. Garrett slid into bed, his mind spinning. The next day at work, Garrett couldn't focus. His colleague, Trevor Beckman, noticed during their team meeting. "Donovan, you look like you've seen a ghost," Trevor said. "Everything okay at home?" "Fine," Garrett lied. Just haven't been sleeping well." That was the understatement of the century. He spent the day researching identity theft, kidnapping laws, twin studies, anything that might help. He found cases of twins switching places temporarily as pranks. He found stories of identity theft. But he found nothing quite like this. At lunch, he drove to a legal office downtown. He needed to understand his options. The lawyer he spoke with, an older man named Gerald Hutchins, listened to a carefully edited version of the story. "Hypothetically speaking," Garrett said, "if someone were to discover that their spouse wasn't who they claimed to be, what would be the legal recourse?" "That depends," Hutchins replied. "On what level of deception are we talking about?" "Complete identity theft. Someone impersonating someone else, living their entire life." Hutchins raised an eyebrow. "That would be multiple felonies. Identity theft, fraud, possibly kidnapping if the real person is being held against their will. But you'd need proof. Substantial proof." "What kind of proof?" "Documentation. Witnesses. Something that clearly demonstrates the deception. And even then, if the two people were virtually identical, say, identical twins, it might be nearly impossible to prove in court which one is the real person and which is the impostor." Garrett left the office feeling defeated. But he couldn't give up. Not on his real wife. Not when she'd been suffering in their basement for 18 months. That evening, he played his part perfectly. He came home, kissed fake Natalie hello, ate the dinner she'd prepared, salmon with roasted vegetables, one of his favorites, and watched TV together. All the while, he studied her, looking for cracks in the facade, searching for some sign that she wasn't who she claimed to be. "You've been quiet today," she said during a commercial break. "Everything okay?" "Just work stress," he replied. She curled up against him. "Well, you're home now. You can relax." But he couldn't relax, because the woman next to him, warm and familiar and perfect, wasn't his wife at all. Before we reach the conclusion of this story, let me remind you one last time to subscribe to Story Mode Folktales. If this story has kept you on the edge of your seat, if it's made you question the people closest to you, then show your support. Subscribe, like, comment. It matters more than you know. At 2:47 a.m., Garrett went back down to the basement. Real Natalie was waiting. "I have a plan," he said, "but it's risky." "Tell me." "We're going to expose her, tomorrow night. I'm going to invite my mother over for dinner. Your mother-in-law loved you. She talked to you at least twice a week before she went into the nursing home. If Vanessa has been impersonating you, she's been talking to my mother too." "But your mother has dementia, Garrett. She won't remember the difference." "Exactly. Which means Vanessa has probably been less careful around her. She might have slipped up, made mistakes she didn't make with sharper people. I'm going to ask Mom questions about things she and you talked about. Things only the real you would know. If Vanessa can't answer them, if there are inconsistencies, it'll start to plant doubt. And if that doesn't work, then we break into that lockbox, we get that file, and we take everything to the police. We make so much noise they can't ignore us." Real Natalie looked scared, but determined. "Okay, let's do it." The next evening, Garrett brought his mother, Dorothy, to dinner. Fake Natalie had seemed surprised, but pleased. "What a lovely idea," she'd said. "I'll make pot roast. Dorothy loves pot roast." But real Natalie had told Garrett that his mother actually hated pot roast. It gave her heartburn. The real Natalie always made chicken when Dorothy visited. Strike one. During dinner, Garrett casually brought up family stories. His mother, in a moment of clarity, mentioned a trip she and Natalie had taken to the botanical gardens last spring. Fake Natalie smiled and nodded. "That was lovely," she said. "The roses were beautiful." But real Natalie had told Garrett that the trip had been in fall, not spring, and they'd gone to see the chrysanthemum display, not roses. Strike two. Then came the test. The real test. "Mom," Garrett said, "do you remember what you used to say to Natalie when she was stressed? Your special saying?" Dorothy's face brightened. "Oh, yes. I'd tell her smooth seas never made skilled sailors. Her own mother used to say that to her. Such a wise woman." Garrett turned to his wife. "That's right, isn't it, honey? Your mom's saying?" Fake Natalie's smile froze. For just a fraction of a second, panic flashed across her face. Then she recovered. "Of course," she said smoothly. "Though I don't remember mentioning it to you, Dorothy." "Oh, you mentioned it many times, dear. It was one of your favorite memories of her." But it wasn't, because Vanessa had never known about it. After Dorothy left, Garrett confronted her. He told her everything he knew, everything he'd discovered. Real Natalie came up from the basement, and the two identical women stood face to face for the first time in 18 months. Vanessa didn't deny it. Instead, she laughed. "You think you've won?" she said. "You think anyone will believe this story? I'm Natalie Donovan. I have the social security number, the birth certificate, the dental records. This woman?" She gestured at real Natalie. "She's a mentally ill stalker who's obsessed with stealing my identity." "We'll see what the police think," Garrett said, pulling out his phone. But Vanessa was faster. She grabbed a knife from the kitchen. "Put the phone down, Garrett." What happened next happened fast. Real Natalie lunged at Vanessa. They fought, two identical women struggling for the knife. Garrett tried to separate them, but couldn't tell which was which in the chaos. Then a gunshot. The police had arrived. Neighbors had called them about the screaming. They'd broken down the door just as Vanessa had gotten control of the knife and was about to use it. In the end, it was the lockbox that saved them. The file Vanessa had kept, documenting her entire plan. Photos of her studying real Natalie, notes on how to impersonate her, even recordings of their conversations in the basement. Vanessa was arrested, charged with kidnapping, identity theft, fraud, attempted murder. Real Natalie was finally free. The story made national news. The woman who stole her twin's life. Media trucks camped outside their house for weeks. Real Natalie underwent therapy to process her trauma. Garrett stood by her through it all. They sold the house in Cleveland. Too many bad memories. They moved to Portland, started over. On their first anniversary of her freedom, Natalie said something that Garrett would never forget. "Vanessa thought she could become me by stealing my life, but she forgot that being someone isn't about memorizing facts or copying habits. It's about character. It's about who you are when everything is stripped away. And down in that basement, with nothing but concrete and darkness, I learned who I really was." "And who was that?" Garrett asked. "A survivor. Someone stronger than I ever knew. Someone worth fighting for." Garrett pulled her close. "I never doubted that. Not for a second." The lesson here isn't just about identity theft or evil twins. It's about paying attention to the people you love. About trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. About fighting for truth even when the truth seems impossible. Garrett had heard strange noises from his basement, and instead of ignoring them or making excuses, he investigated. That decision saved his wife's life. Sometimes the most important thing we can do is listen. Really listen. Not just to words, but to the silence between them. To the things that feel slightly off. To our gut telling us something isn't right. Because the people we love deserve our full attention. They deserve to be truly seen, truly known. And when something threatens that connection, we owe it to them and to ourselves to fight for the truth, no matter how crazy it might seem. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about trust and identity, and what it means to truly know someone, then do me a favor. Subscribe to Story Mode Folktales right now. Support the channel that brings you these powerful stories. Like this video. And comment below telling me where you're watching from and what you thought of Garrett and Natalie's story. Thanks for watching, and remember, always trust your instincts. They might just save someone's life.